No ceasefire, no votes. And in November, we remember. Those were two chants we heard Saturday in Washington at the largest rally in U.S. history for Palestinian rights. Protesters denounced President Biden for refusing to support a ceasefire in Gaza while sending more arms to Israel as it continues its month-long bombardment that's killed over 10,000 Palestinians, including 4,000 children. Polls show Biden's support among Arab Americans is plummeting. This is Nihad Awad, the head of CARE, that's the Council on American Islamic Relations, speaking at Saturday's rally.
No ceasefire, no votes. No ceasefire, no votes. No votes in Michigan. No votes in Arizona. No votes in Georgia. No votes in Nevada. No votes in Wisconsin. No votes in Pennsylvania. No votes in Ohio. No votes for you anywhere. If you do not call for a ceasefire now, we will make our voices heard more and more. In November, we remember. In November, we remember.
Nihad Awad, head of CARE, said he was speaking in his own capacity. We are joined now by Jim Zogby, president of the Arab American Institute, joining us from Washington, D.C. It's great to have you with us. If you can talk about these figures that I'm sure the White House is looking at carefully. In 2020, President Biden had something like 59% support of the Arab American community. Right now, it's at something like 17%. James Zogby, if you can talk about Biden's stance right now on Israel and Gaza.
Thanks, Amy. It's been a long time since we've been together, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Look, the poll is one that we did to get a read on the community. I have never seen in the 27 years we've been polling, my brother and I have been polling Arab Americans. We never saw a movement this dramatic over this short a period of time. The last time we polled Arab Americans was just a few months ago, and the drop since then has been even more precipitous than the drop since 2020. This issue resonates. It's big. It's important. It also is part of a general national trend. Arab Americans are not immune from what the rest of the culture is feeling, and that is that President Biden just is not in control of his own presidency and how he is being portrayed to the American people and to the world. They didn't elect a Reaganite foreign policy advocate, a neocon who was fighting for freedom there to have freedom here, that kind of rhetoric that comes from the White House. They voted for somebody that focus on a whole bunch of domestic issues to bring domestic peace and tranquility after 4 years of Donald Trump. And that's not what they've gotten. And I think that, coupled with the Gaza situation, most certainly is driving these negative numbers. They are deeply disappointed with the position he's taken on this conflict, and they just are jumping ship.
And Jim Zogby, could you talk about some other aspects of the poll, what the support for a ceasefire was, and also whether there were gender or age or religious differences in those you polled?
What was really significant was that across the board, when you get numbers that high, a flip that high, or numbers in the 70% range on several questions like support for a ceasefire, or how important is the Palestinian issue to you, or how disappointed are you with the president's performance on this issue, all of those numbers were 2/3 or greater. When you get numbers that great, you expect across the board to see the crosstabs reading that way, and we did. There was virtually no difference in terms of majorities, regardless of religion, regardless of whether born here or immigrant, or a gender or age. Pretty much across the board, there's frustration and deep disappointment with this president. And the question I keep getting asked is, can Biden win him back? The visceral reaction to this issue is so great that in order to do that, something dramatic has to come from the White House. And I'm not sure that the president has the wherewithal to do it. Look, I've heard two things from people at the White House. The one is they're not going to vote for Donald Trump because they don't want, they don't want back what he was doing during his 4 years. And so they'll come around in a year. I told them that when I heard that, I said, that's insulting and dismissive. You have to earn that vote. They might just as well stay home. They might vote for Cornel West. They might just not vote at all. And it's not a given that young Arab American women who want control over their bodies and their health care, that older Arab Americans who want protection for their Medicare or an expansion of health care, it's not clear that they're going to make the decision to vote at all if they don't have something to vote for. It worked the last time. Vote for me because I'm not the other guy. I'm not quite sure it'll work. It'll work this time. And I've got an article coming out in The Nation tomorrow that makes the point that it's not just Arab Americans who are affected this way. It's young people, it's progressive Jews, it's Black, Latino, Asian voters. There's a significant decline that this president is encountering across the board. And Gaza is playing into it. It is a sort of a canary in the coal mine issue. It's one that sort of is the speaking to a broader sense of dissatisfaction, and the White House has to get a handle on that and not just dismiss it.
And speaking of broader sense of dissatisfaction, you worked with Bernie Sanders for two of his campaigns. How do you understand his insistence only on calling for a humanitarian pause and not a ceasefire?
And Juan, let me play a clip of Bernie Sanders, who was interviewed this weekend on CNN.
I want to just clarify one thing, Senator, if I might. You support a humanitarian pause in Gaza. Some of your fellow progressives say that there should be a full-on ceasefire, which would require an agreement on both sides to halt the fighting. Do you support a ceasefire? And if not, why not?
Well, I don't know how you can have a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, with an organization like Hamas, which is dedicated to turmoil and chaos and destroying the state of Israel. And I think what the Arab countries in the region understand, that Hamas has got to go.
That was Bernie Sanders being interviewed by Dana Bash of CNN. In fact, just a few days ago, Bernie Sanders' office was occupied by a group of progressives protesting that he wasn't calling for a ceasefire, among other senators. Jim Zogby.
Look, I have no idea. I've called the senator, didn't get a call back, left them a couple of messages, text messages, didn't hear back. And I'm disappointed and frankly confounded. I don't understand the thinking here. One could easily take the sentence that he spoke about you don't have a ceasefire with a group like Hamas that blah, 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 and stick in the Netanyahu government of the most extreme rightists in the country that are today, while under the cover of Gaza, taking armed settlers to evacuate Palestinian villages and force people to leave their lands, leave their orchards and their homes. This is a crazy extremist government, and yes, Hamas is a group that has done and does evil things, just like the Netanyahu government does evil things. The question is, that's why you need a ceasefire. And to say we can't have peace with them, it's what the Palestinians say, we can't have peace with the Netanyahu government. But the problem is that the United States has to act like the adult in the room, and we haven't. We've been the cheerleader, the coat holder, the enabler, and the funder of one side, digging the hole deeper every single day. And the result is that we're locked in a conflict here on Israel's side that has no good end in sight. Those who think on this path will eliminate Hamas, forget what happened in Beirut in '82, forget what happened in Lebanon in 2006, or what happened in Afghanistan or Iraq. You don't eliminate. What you do is you create the conditions for something more virulent afterwards. You're not going to get rid of Hamas. I mean, the million-plus people who've been forced to leave their belongings, their memories, the neighborhoods that they lived in, now reduced to rubble and flee to the south where there's no infrastructure to take care of them. The families of the 10,000 who've died, 4,000 of whom children, they're not going to say when this is over, if it's ever over, oh, we love Israel, let's have peace. There is going to be the seed. There are the seeds being planted today for Hamas 2.0 or something more virulent. And I don't understand how the folks in the White House or the State Department just don't get it and say, this is not going to end well. At the end of this path, with the exception of more dead bodies, more anger, and more virulent extremism, we're going to be right back where we started. It's a failure of the United States, not of Hamas and of Israel, but the United States. We have not shown the leadership that we ought to be showing, given the fact that we're funding this damn thing, to stop it.